Hey guys, my name's Nick. I'm a Microsoft Certified Expert Administrator. Create a lot of content for MSPs, and in today's video, I'm going to be covering a high-level overview of Microsoft Defender Advanced Threat Protection, which is Microsoft's EDR solution. I think it warrants a discussion, and I brought it into my video series here because they are now offering this as a standalone product, part of the CSP program. So you can start to bolt this on to some of the business level plans that you might have, like Microsoft 365 Business Premium. So I definitely think that you should evaluate this as a potential solution there. Today's video, I'll be covering a high-level overview of the current landscape, some of the features that are involved within Microsoft Defender ATP, and then I'll be going through a demo of the portal as well. So when we think about our current landscape here, in most cases you are using an RMM tool or something of that nature to deploy an agent out to these devices if you are adopting an EDR solution today, like in SentinelOne, if I have an example here to show you. So with this, you do have to deploy the agent every time you onboard new devices, and you do have to maintain that agent over time as well too, which could be a pain point in some cases, but logistically, that's how you're sending this out for all of your customers. Next here, you in some cases may not be adopting an EDR solution today, just antivirus, which you're pushing out to your clients. So some of this could be Sophos antivirus, Webroot, Proofpoint as examples here, but you're just using that as a single layered solution for endpoint protection, not exactly the endpoint detection and response capabilities. In the current landscape we're in, though, I definitely recommend that you do adopt both. Having both on a machine is definitely going to be a best security practice, especially with everyone moving to remote work. The ability to scan these environments here, especially whenever you see a lot of customers moving off network to just being in the cloud or maybe just VPNing into your network, there's definitely a lot of new security loopholes or considerations to take in mind, especially now also too with the explosion of third-party SaaS apps. So the last piece here that I want to touch on as a potential pain point is it's really hard to manage the alerts that are coming through your organization. So you typically, have your one customer there that's then reporting alerts to a central dashboard. In most cases, you're looking for a multi-tenant like solution so you can push out policies to multiple tenants at the same time versus having to recreate them. But in any case, you're almost overwhelmed with a lot of alerts, not only from one customer, but especially when you scale that across all of your customers as well. So when you think about that as a solution, you have all of your customer sites that soon start to report these alerts to your dashboard here. And even though you want to, as a best security practice, you just don't have the capacity or time to keep up with these alerts. Even if you do have a small team that's taking a look at it, it can often get very overwhelming very quickly, thinking about trying to remediate all these alerts that are going on within your organization or across all of your customers. So when you think about that or thinking about the size of an MSP, some of us just don't have the capacity to go in and manage these things over time. And this is really where Microsoft Defender comes into play with a lot of the automated investigation and response. So they do have over 80% of their alerts that are completely fully automated if you want them to be within the solution here. But it's a very robust and very complex solution, which is why I'm making this video series here to kind of break down and demystify a lot of these things. I'll be doing a video on each one of these key points you see here just to kind of break it down fully in depth. And I'll also be giving you a game day strategy as far as what you should roll out in the first 30 days, 60 days, and 90 days. Because otherwise you will be overwhelmed by how much you can actually do with this solution. But as you can see here, it's very robust in that you have TVM and threat and vulnerability management, you have attack surface reduction, you have next gen protection, you have EDR, auto investigation and remediation, and then also potential access to Microsoft threat experts. In the SMB space, I don't think that's going to happen, to be honest, but we'll get into that at a later time. But it's also good, which I'll break down, is understanding the licensing capabilities. Like some of these solutions, mostly around attack surface reduction, you won't have the full feature set due to the fact that you don't have Windows 10 Enterprise OS installed on a lot of these devices if you're adopting it for the SMB space. So the big thing here that I mentioned earlier is that this solution was traditionally only available in the E5 offering, but now it's offered standalone for CSP at $5.20 a seat. So it's pretty reasonable in the sense of cost here, but it is something where you can now bolt it on to these solutions like Microsoft Business Premium and offer this as a package for enhanced security to your customers. And again, we'll be working through different videos showing you the licensing models and the pricing and all of that. But this is why I wanted to make these videos, because I think now it is something that you should evaluate. Some of the pros and cons here, when I think about this as a solution in relation to the MSP space, there's a few here that we can talk about. First off, it's an EDR plus an AV solution in that it's using Microsoft Defender AV on the devices here to collectively gather all this telemetry and provide some of this next-gen protection that you see there and things like that. Traditionally, it could replace a lot of your current AV and current costs with that. You may want to replace that with a combination of these solutions, as in the EDR plus the AV. In the past, I would say if you're just looking at Windows Defender as an antivirus, many of us are detracted by that. But I think when you combine the two here with the EDR solution, the automated investigation and response, it becomes pretty powerful. Secondly here, the main consideration is that this is just built into the OS when you think about Windows 10 devices. So there's no agent that you have to push out, no agent that you have to maintain. You can simply, depending on your enrollment method, toggle a switch on in the sense that they're enrolled to Intune and automatically have these agents or devices start reporting back into the Defender console as well too for that. The next piece here is platform support. So not only do they support Windows 10, but you can also support Windows 7, Windows 8, Mac OS, Linux, and also now Android as well too. That's all pretty recent, but that's great to think about when you consider organizations across the board that you're trying to support and having some Macs in those environments, and also extending that support into mobile devices as well is a very powerful experience. The big piece of this is the automated investigation and response that I mentioned here, where you're automating about 80% of the alerts that could be generated within the portal. That's definitely going to be why you want to consider this. Is just simply for the time savings that can get you when looking at the kill chain or different attacks that may be occurring within your organization. You want to try to start to automate as lot of that as possible. The other piece here is the deep integrations with the cross-suite offerings. So Microsoft Defender ATP works really well with Intune, works really well with the Azure Information Protection for label classification across the organization, and you can create different policies based off that if there's highly classified assets on a certain device, for instance. It also has a deep integration with this Microsoft's CASB solution, the Cloud App Security, for the third-party applications that you may be onboarding or using within an organization. So it becomes really powerful when you start to integrate these other solutions. And lastly, there's some open APIs available as well too from Microsoft. So you can integrate it with other third-party systems like your ticketing solutions. And I'll be showing you how to set this up with ConnectWise as well too as part of this video series. But if you think about traditional ERP, you can do ServiceNow as well too. When you think about cons, the biggest one that I see is just no multi-tenancy. So you're still working out of a single tenant environment, and even though you do have admin on behalf of access via Partner Center, it's still not as rich of an experience as you would see working out of one portal and just toggling between your different customers. So there's definitely that going on in this portal that you have to compensate for and have to go into. But I still think with how powerful the solution is, it should be something that you evaluate when you're looking at an EDR solution. Second con here is that third-party mixture is not advised from Microsoft. When I say mixture, I'm talking about using this as an EDR, but also using Webroot as an antivirus, or using two solutions as part of an AV or part of an EDR. Microsoft mentions that this combination is really going to mess with the telemetry that they're trying to collect and the reporting capabilities and some of the machine learning that's going on within the environment. So if you are, looking at combining the two, it's really not advised from Microsoft. So you would want to probably stick with one or the other. Lastly, there are lack of features without Windows 10 Enterprise. I mentioned a lot of the attack surface reduction rules aren't going to be available to you unless you have the Windows 10 Enterprise OS. So keep that in mind. So like I mentioned here, I do want to do a getting started introduction for you because as you'll see as we dive into the demo here next, it is a very overwhelming solution to kind of get acclimated to. There's a lot going on, there's a lot of reporting, and there's a lot of different things that you can do as a security analyst, as a sec admin, or part of security operations as well too. So I want to give you guys kind of a game plan and route to demystify this over time and just consume what you need to slowly roll this out to your organization, or at least give it a test drive, right? Because you do have it now standalone, so month by month subscriptions, you could onboard a few devices as a pilot, and still at the end of the day, maybe you spent $20 that month to just test out this as a solution and see how it worked for you. I think that's well worth the cost. When you're looking at this, there's also trials available, but unless you have, from my experience, pretty robust tenant, they're going to deny you the trial in the portal. So I would just try to get it from a CSP provider, honestly, and test it out. But I will be doing a deep dive of each part of the offering that I showed you there on that one slide, where we're going to go into threat and vulnerability management in depth. We're going to go into EDR in depth. We're going to go into next-gen protection in depth, just so you guys understand the full scope of the offering, understanding what licensing models that matches to when you think about the OS it's supporting, understanding how to navigate the portal, and also derive efficiencies when you think about connecting this to your PSA, for instance, for heightened reporting in the central portal or things like that I really want to cater it to this market towards. So right now, that's all I wanted to show you in the sense of these slides. So I just wanted to get into a high-level overview of the actual portal just to see what's going on and to get a good understanding of what's all capable within the portal. Hey guys, so I'm in here in a particular tenant, and I have this tenant licensed with Microsoft 365 Business Premium and also with Microsoft Defender ATP. This does give me a pretty robust security stack when I think about the combination of offerings at roughly $25 a user a month. Comes with Intune for an MDM solution, comes with Office 365 ATP, comes with the AIP services, and then also this ADR plus the AV protection as well too on the devices. So it's a pretty robust solution for a particular customer. Again, not multi-tenant, but I'm in here in the Microsoft Defender Security Center for a particular tenant that I already have spun up with this kind of licensing in there. Before I get into the dashboard here, I think it's good to understand on a high level scope of what the service is actually doing behind the scenes. So you can onboard devices in various different ways. The two of which are going to probably cater to this market directly is going to be either through an Intune connection. You have them enrolled into Intune. You toggle a switch on, they immediately start populating in here, and it starts the scanning services. Or two, you're going to use local group policy to push out a script that onboards the devices and toggles these settings on within the particular OS themselves, their Windows 10 devices. So a couple different ways there, and I'll get into other platforms in later videos, but I just wanted to show you guys some of the services in here so you understand what's going on a little bit better. The biggest thing here is after you onboard the devices, there'll be scanning going on a continual, almost real-time basis here that comes back in as reporting, and also you can generate particular alerts. It will generate particular alerts based off of suspicious behavior or malicious behavior on the particular device. You have tons of metadata in here, which is why I'm doing so many videos to try to demystify this, because there's just so much information that's given to you within this portal that you can navigate. But the biggest thing here is that alerts are generated on these devices and they roll up into incidents. So incidents can be composed of many different active alerts here, like you see. So if I click on one, you can see that this incident is composed of 4 alerts. I can see what devices are being affected by this particular incident. I can see if there's any automated investigations going on, and I can see on the graph here a graphical view of how this is occurring and what files maybe led to these alerts showing up here. So you have a complete history of this, and it's doing all this machine learning to discover the attack chain, how this occurred, and it gives you this metadata that you can view directly within the portal. So when I click on a particular alert as part of an incident, I can see various details here. I can see what kind of category it's putting it in. Again, I can also go straight into the MITRE framework here. If I click on this window, and it'll describe this technique that is being shown here in a descriptive fashion on their website, which is pretty cool. So you can do some heightened investigation. You can additionally see, what was going on in the device, and you can classify this so that you can say that, maybe it's a true alert, maybe I'm good to go work on it, or maybe it's been resolved by my team. So you have various capabilities here, and you have a lot of information to say, okay, these are the recommended actions for this type of alert as part of this incident. The other piece to all this, though, is obviously the automation that you want to see as part of this. So depending on what machine learning activities go on here and what's been gathered as far as, this being a particular alert, you can open it on the alert page. Again, it'll pull it up here, and you can see also a timeline. And this timeline, is basically an event on the device itself, pulls up the device, and you can see how this attack chain kind of formed based off of events running on the particular device. So again, very, very descriptive there, but the big piece is that it will generate automated investigation here for the incident, and you can configure how automated you want things to be. Like I mentioned, Microsoft states today that about 80% of their alerts can be automatically remediated. Otherwise, when you start off in the tenant, you do have the approval process being sent to you here, like you see on this automated investigation, where you have this in a pending approval. It gives you all the details, gives you recommended actions, and then you can open it up again on the investigation page. You can see this graphical interface of what's been going on, what did it analyze within the processes, files, services, drivers on the device, IP addresses, and then how, this is a log of the investigation, and it shows you what all it's doing to get to this conclusion of the recommended action that it's giving you here in the pending action section. And you can choose then to go ahead and approve these as a approved action. And you can also roll back any approved action as well too. Like if you deleted a file, for instance, or something like that, you can also go back in and determine, that it wasn't malicious and restore it if you really wanted to. And that's where you get into more of the granular control here. But I think it's cool because you can, get this metadata first, and you can also create specific rules based off of the things going here, like adding this to the block list or allowing it to an allow list within the service itself, or approving injecting this with comment history as well too, so other people within your organization can see what's going on in here. So like I mentioned, a good starting point, which we'll go into in other videos, is obviously to start off not fully automated, get a couple weeks of data coming through, see what kind of recommendations you're being given. Because the biggest thing you want is obviously to remediate all these activities automatically, but also not inhibit user productivity on their devices themselves, or get them to start shutting off processes that you shouldn't be in general. So this has got a lot of metadata in here, and you obviously kind of want to span this across team members within your organization. Somebody like the security admin that defines policies, things like that, can come in here and view this activity, create the policies that you want over time, restrict those policies or get them a little bit more hardened if you discover new software that's causing vulnerabilities, but then also relay that to other people in the organization, like the IT admin, who is deploying this type of software out to the organization, or who's doing the patches on the OS on a periodic basis. So this is good to collaborate in here, but you can harden the environments over time. And I anticipate that you'll find similar trends within similar verticals across your customer, or just holistically across your customers in general. So you also have your action center here, which kind of takes you back to the same place where you can approve or reject these things, and it gives you all the metadata here to kind of break things down in various detail for you. So that's the main functionality that it's doing behind the scenes. There's obviously a lot of tabs we see here, but if you want to think about it from a high-level overview, that's all that's going on. Your onboard devices, it's running the scans, it's creating alerts off the scanning, and combining those based off of certain events and linking the alerts together to create incidents for you that may cross devices, maybe on a single device, but all lead up to a certain kill chain, which you can then create an automated investigation and take action on. So that's the foundation to everything. Everything else within this portal kind of gets in a little bit more depth of dashboard reporting for all the things that I just mentioned, devices at risk, users at risk, things like that, automated investigations that are going on at this point in time. The other cool part in here that you can see is threat analytics. This is Microsoft security team reporting these new attacks that are known on a global scale or a regional scale in a lot of cases as well too. And they'll publish these, and you can come in here, and I would come in here as a sec admin, and I would look at these particular attacks. You can see they've written an executive summary and an analysis on it, the kill chain, the attack chain, the MITRE attack techniques observed. So it's highly descriptive. And the cool part though is that it's actively looking for these vulnerabilities within your actual organization. So you can see if there's any devices here with these threats involved right off the beginning of the dashboard. But if you don't, that's where you can become more proactive in reading CVEs, and creating more defined policies based off of what's going on in the market and the top known threats in the market as well too. So you know that you can communicate with the IT admin when you think about the patch updates or the software that you're deploying out into the organization. Device inventory is next here, and this is just giving you a list of all your devices, and you can see the exposure levels, things like this too. The cool part about these is that you can integrate this with Intune, and you can say that a device is out of compliance if its risk level is high, or you can create conditional access policies that do block access to certain resources if a machine is at a certain threat level or risk level, in this case like high. So that's another good way to be proactive on isolating the device. You can set up rules as well too to isolate the device off the network. You can restrict app execution if it's a third-party app that's on the device. You can tag devices to maybe apply certain auto remediation to certain groups of devices, or tag devices based off of high-valued asset users, like the CEO and CTO of a company, things like that. And you can also run antivirus scans, you can collect investigation packages, and also initiate a live response session, which is cool because you can initiate a remote shell connection with a device and start running some scripts if you really wanted to, or delete files immediately that may be malicious without actually having to have a third-party tool like Screen Connect, for instance, or TeamViewer to have that remote connection on the device to pop in there and do that. So you can do it all within this particular portal. So there's a lot, again, going on with all these things, and we'll get into that in subsequent videos. I just wanted to show you this high level of what's going on. So these are going to be all your devices. Advanced hunting is something I consider to be well down the line in the sense of roadmap items where you want to adopt certain things. Advanced hunting uses KQL language to run queries in the environment, maybe create rules or quote-unquote runbooks off of that as well too for certain detections that you see within the environment. This is again something I would say that you would want to adopt later down the line after you've kind of got a good foundation of your general rules and the kinds of incidents that you're triaging throughout the organization. You have reporting that comes in here as well too. There's web protection services as well as threat protection, so you can see kind of the threat categories that are trending in the account, so you can maybe do some more proactive work with your policies or some additional user training for certain things that may be going on. You also have web protection capabilities in here too to whitelist or blocklist certain URLs or IP addresses or file hashes, things like that. So there's definitely a lot you can do there. You can block certain web content, casino sites, right, or pornographic sites as well too. You can automatically set up rules to block those. That differentiates itself from Office 365 ATP because it's actually blocking from the endpoint itself, not just through email or Teams or SharePoint. We talked about APIs, and I'm not going to get into that, but some of the additional things that you have in here, some security recommendations based off of how much this is exposed in the account. The cool part here though is that unless these things are lit up, like breach insights, threat insights, or some of the insights here, if none of those are lit up, they're not as big of a demand for you, I would say, because there's no known threats here. You have these recommendations that you can go and do, like secure score information, for instance, is a good one. But you could also create exception rules for these as well too. Maybe it's just accept risk you have in the organization. Maybe you have a grace period before you got to get to this. So it's a good way to, again, as a security administrator, come in here and view these things and assign the actual task to SecOps to go and perform if you feel like they're warranted, or if you as an organization collectively say this is going to be an assumed risk that we're taking in the organization itself. You have your remediation task here. This is where you could integrate third-party ticketing systems like your PSA tool to push these remediation tasks in there. It also integrates with Intune, so you can push out alerts into Intune that you need to. Maybe you have an Intune administrator, or your IT admin is the Intune administrator, and these alerts or remediation activities involved the upgrade of the OS or deploying upgrades to the software and the sense of what version it's on. So that could be something where you collectively work between the two portals or have two roles performing these actions. And then you also, like we mentioned here, you get a software inventory that's listed for all the software installed on the devices, and you'll have vulnerabilities or known threats associated with those that could pop up here that you can choose to remediate. You'll see the exposed devices, but you also see things that they auto tag, like end of support software for Windows 7 devices. Things like that that you can proactively look at and just know there's some additional things going on that you are taking on as assumed risk in a lot of cases. Weaknesses are known CVEs here. Again, if you don't have any exposed devices to these, they're not going to be as big of a priority. But again, as a sec admin, you can be more proactive in kind of looking at these things here. Like let's say you're, evaluating Zoom, for instance. Well, this is a CVE related to Zoom here that you could evaluate beforehand. So if you do go in to purchase that, it is something that you have a little bit more of a background on some of the known vulnerabilities in the market today, and communicate that to the IT administrator, who will be pushing that out to people within the organization. And that most likely is, again, going to be someone on your team that's doing all this. You have evaluation labs and simulations, which I highly encourage. That just shows you, a simulated attack on a device that you spin up. It's just a virtual machine. But that gives you a good perspective on kind of how they triage the events, the automated investigation that's going on, and what you can see in the sense of alerts and the incidents that are created based off that. Lastly, here in the settings, you do have, like I mentioned, the ability to create all these connections here. First and foremost, one of the top ones is going to be this Intune connection. So you can toggle this on, and it automatically just onboards every device that's enrolled into Intune into the ATP service, which is great to have if you're thinking about a broad deployment other than group policy. And then you have those deep integrations that I mentioned with CASB solution, with information protection, with Azure ATP. So there's a lot going on here that you can actually turn on. And you can also create your own custom indicators, like we mentioned, for web protection, for IP addresses, for file hashes, things like that. Web content filtering as well too. You can set up certain rules for this. So there's definitely, tons of robustness in this solution. Definitely a lot to take in, which is why I'm going to be spending the next few videos there showing you how to slowly onboard these devices, what steps to take to consume this in a reasonable fashion, and then do deep dives on certain pieces of it so you understand full scope of what you're looking at, and can collectively, depending on the size of your organization, then take this and roll it out and scale across other organizations as well too, if you do decide this is going to be a great solution for your entire customer base. So that's everything I want to show for you guys in this video. Please like or subscribe if you want to see more content related to the MSP space and Microsoft 365. Otherwise, stay tuned for more videos on Microsoft Defender ATP. Thanks, guys. Have a great day.